Before today's video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest videos. If you want to see a case or topic covered by Paranormally Listed, then go to criminallylisted.com and fill out the questionnaire under the Suggest a Case tab. Number 3. The Red Velvet Chair of Wittenberg University. Wittenberg University is a liberal arts college in Springfield, Ohio, which was founded in 1845. Before its founding, the town of Springfield wanted an educational institute of its own. The town's promoters offered 17 acres of land to build a school to sweeten the deal. However, they did mention to the founders that the land was a cemetery. Most of the bodies were dug up and reburied to make room for the school, but some were missed. Perhaps this is why Wittenberg is considered one of America's most haunted campuses. Former Wittenberg University president William A. Kinnison wrote a book about the hauntings in his 2018 book, America's Most Haunted Campus. One of the stories in the book is of the Red Velvet Chair. According to Kinnison, in 1886, the campus furnished its new recitation hall with 40 velvet chairs for its literary society. Eventually, the literary society closed, and most of the chairs were given to students in local furniture stores. But a few of the chairs remained on campus. According to Kinnison, one of the chairs that stayed on campus is haunted. He wrote that if you stare at the haunted velvet chair long enough, a, quote, dust-like image of a handsome man will appear, unquote. If you want to see the apparition, you must be patient and give it time. The longer you stare, the clearer you see the ghostly specter. But staring at the chair for a long period doesn't guarantee that the ghost will appear. Kinnison wrote that the ghostly spirit decides who he wants to appear to and is not, quote, open to any and all comers, unquote. Witnesses claim they've seen a man wearing eyeglasses and has a mustache. The man is well dressed, wearing a coat and necktie. When he suddenly vanishes, people hear a muffled sob or faint sigh. Wittenberg has never been able to identify this well-dressed specter. No one knows why he resides in the chair or what he's trying to accomplish. Number 2. The Devil's Rocking Chair. In the summer of 1980, the Glatzel family lived in Brookfield, Connecticut. One morning, 11-year-old David Glatzel awoke in terror. He was sure that someone or something was in his room. David told his family that he saw a mysterious man that was part man and part beast, with horns, hooves, and spiky teeth. The experience traumatized David, and he became socially withdrawn from his family. David's sister, Debbie, was concerned. She was positive her brother was telling the truth. She sensed something was very wrong with him. Night after night, David had reoccurring dreams of the beast man. The dreams became more intense. David started waking up with strange bruises and markings. It wasn't long before the demonic figure, whom the family called the Beast, appeared to David when he was awake. Then David's family started to see evidence of the Beast. The Beast's favorite spot was a rocking chair the family had owned since the 1950s. The family claimed they would see the chair rocking on its own. David's mental state deteriorated further, and he started claiming he was the Beast. Desperate for help, David's family invited a priest to banish the evil from their Connecticut home. But this only made things worse. David's visions became more frequent and intense. His behavior became more erratic as he started shouting at his family in unrecognizable voices or in Old English. Family members took turns watching over David during the night, attempting to keep him under control. He also had seizures during this time. The Glatzels family brought in famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren to help. The Warrens worked with a priest to perform multiple exorcisms on David, all while he sat in the rocking chair. The Warrens claimed that during their time with the Glatzels, they saw the chair rock on its own and briefly levitate off the floor. The Warrens claimed that the chair was the center of demonic activity. During one of David's exorcisms, Arn Johnson, David's sister's fiancé, challenged the demons to enter him instead. Years later, Arn said, quote, "I yelled at this thing to the top of my lungs. I said, 'Leave this kid alone. Take me on. I'm here. Take me on.' I felt this coldness come over me, ice cold. Lorraine said, 'Oh my God, what did you do?'" Unquote. After 4 exorcisms, the team successfully extracted 42 demons from David's body. David seemed to go back to normal, and the family's nightmares were over. Or so they thought. After the exorcisms, 19-year-old Arn Johnson started to exhibit unusual behavior. Arn hissed at people and claimed he had the same visions as David. The family concluded that the demon had transferred into Arn's body and he was now possessed. His strange behavior intensified over time. On February 16, 1981, Arn Johnson snapped during an argument with his landlord, 40-year-old Alan Bono. Arn stabbed Bono with his pocket knife over 20 times as his fiancée, Debbie, watched on in horror. During his 1981 trial, Arn pleaded not guilty, claiming he was not criminally responsible for his actions. He said demonic possession caused him to kill his landlord. The judge did not buy the explanation, arguing demonic possession could not be objectively or scientifically proven. On November 28, 1981, the jury found Arn guilty of first-degree manslaughter. The judge sentenced him to 10 to 20 years of prison 3 weeks later. Arn Johnson behaved in prison and he was released after 5 years. He married Debbie after his release and they had 2 children. Arn said he found religion in prison and he is no longer possessed. He went on to become a landscaper. Debbie died of cancer in 2021. David Glatzel, the young boy who was originally possessed, is now a grown man in his 50s. We cover the case of Arn Johnson in our video, 3 Killers Who Claim the Devil Made Them Do It. The Glatzel family kept the rocking chair even when they moved houses. Strange occurrences continued to happen when people sat on the chair. Some people complained about severe back pain after sitting in the chair. In extreme cases, some people even had to be rushed to the hospital. In 2019, David Glatzel's brother, Carl Glatzel, decided to sell the infamous chair. Carl was one member of the Glatzel family who thought the possession was a hoax perpetrated by the Warrens. He believes that his brother had a mental illness. Carl was a teenager at the time of the supposed possession and he publicly distanced himself from the case. But that didn't stop Carl from selling the rocking chair to celebrity paranormal investigator Zach Bagans for $67,000. Bagans put the chair on exhibit in his Las Vegas, Nevada haunted museum. Almost 20 minutes after the exhibit opened, Bagans and his staff claimed they saw the chair rock, even though no one was around it. Then the electrical cord used to light the exhibit mysteriously came out of the wall. After the first group of visitors came in front of the devil's rocking chair, a woman collapsed and became hysterical. She shouted, quote, "Why is this happening to me?" unquote, and then fell unconscious. Museum visitors claimed they have felt evil vibes when they got close to the chair. Later, 5 tour guides started crying uncontrollably without reason. The problems caused Bagans to close the exhibit temporarily. The Devil's Rocking Chair made headlines again in 2024 when local news outlets released surveillance video from the museum. In the clip, strange whistling and growling can be heard for almost 4 minutes. The Haunted Museum's owner, Zach Bagans, was away during the recording and no one else was there. Number 1. Busby's Chair of Death. In the early 18th century, Thomas Busby and his father-in-law, Daniel Audie, ran a coin counterfeiting operation outside Thirsk, England. Audie bought a small, secluded piece of land for their coining operation. He called the property Donati Hill. The house had a secret chamber they could access through a secret passage in the cellar. Busby was a heavy drinker and a career criminal. He also owned a local inn with a pub. Busby had a favorite chair in the pub where he tended to pass out. Although Audie and Busby were partners in crime and marriage through family, they did not get along well. Audie disapproved of Busby's marriage to his daughter. One day in 1702, Audie and Busby argued. Later that day, Busby and Audie were both in the pub. While Audie sat in Busby's favorite chair, he threatened to take his daughter away from the area. Later that night, Busby snuck into his father-in-law's room and bludgeoned him to death with a hammer. Busby stashed Audie's body in a nearby forest. Local residents noticed Audie's disappearance, and they talked to the local authorities. The authorities found the body and arrested Busby. He was allegedly passed out in his favorite chair when he was arrested. Busby was convicted of his father-in-law's murder and sentenced to death by hanging. Legend has it that Busby stopped by the inn on his way to the gallows for one final drink. There, from his favorite chair, he proclaimed, quote, "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit in my chair," unquote. After Busby was hanged, he was gibbeted, meaning his body was dipped in tar and placed in a steel cage to rot in the city square on a gibbet post, also known as a stoop, as a deterrent to other would-be criminals. Sometime after Busby's execution, the pub was renamed Busby's Stoop Inn. Although the name changed, the chair remained in the pub. Most people were afraid to sit in the chair, but some dared to tempt the curse. One night in 1894, a chimney sweep sat in Busby's chair. The next morning, he was found dead, hanging from the same stoop Busby's body had been hanged from 2 centuries earlier. It's believed that the chair claimed many lives during World War II. Supposedly, many Canadian airmen stationed in the area frequented the pub and sat in the cursed chair, which had gained the name the Chair of Death. Those who sat in the chair did not return from their missions. In 1967, 2 Royal Air Force pilots took turns sitting in the Chair of Death. On the way home from the pub, their car collided with a tree, and they were both killed. The curse had become well known to many in the area. People who proclaimed they didn't believe in the curse would be taunted until they sat in the chair to prove they weren't afraid. Sadly, these people met tragic ends. One day during lunch, 2 builders working close to the pub dared each other to sit in the chair. One of the men accepted the dare and sat down. Hours later, he fell to his death from the roof. A hitchhiker staying at the inn for 2 days sat in Busby's Chair of Death. He was killed when he was run over by a car not long after leaving the inn. One man had a heart attack shortly after sitting in the chair. Another time, a cleaner who accidentally stumbled into the chair while mopping died of a brain tumor. In the 1970s, the pub's landlord, Tony Earnshaw, finally decided to do something about the Chair of Death. After centuries of it being in the pub, he moved the chair to the basement. Unfortunately, the chair was not finished killing people. A beer delivery man who didn't believe in the curse sat in the chair while it was in the basement. Shortly after leaving the pub, he crashed his truck just a few miles from the pub, and he was killed. In 1978, Earnshaw decided to get rid of the chair. He donated the chair to the Thirsk Museum. He had one condition: they had to hang the chair from the ceiling so no one could sit in it. They agreed, and the chair hangs 5 feet from the floor. While Busby's cursed chair makes for a good story, the legend has changed over the past 300 years. However, local historians say that parts of the legend are historical facts. There is no evidence that Busby was married to Audie's daughter, but there is evidence the men ran a counterfeiting operation together. Spy records show that Audie died in 1702. Another major problem is that there are no records that show Busby cursed the chair. It's just been stories passed down through generations. There are also rational explanations for the deaths surrounding the chair. As we mentioned earlier, in 1894, shortly after sitting in the chair, a chimney sweep was found hanging from the stoop hole where Busby's body had been hanged. Initially, it was thought that the chair drove the man to kill himself. However, in 1914, a friend of the chimney sweep admitted on his deathbed that he had robbed and murdered his friend. The historical accuracy of the chair has also come into question. Furniture historian Dr. Adam Bowitt claims the chair spindles were machine-made, whereas 18th century chairs were made with a pole lathe, a hand-operated machine. Dr. Bowitt concluded the chair was a caster chair manufactured in the 1840s, almost a century and a half after Busby's supposed execution. So while the chair's origins are murky, many people think it's cursed regardless of its origins. Even people who consider themselves rational and non-superstitious, like the museum president, Dr. Peter Wyan, don't want to risk sitting in the chair. Some believe the chair is responsible for over 60 deaths. Busby's chair of death still resides in the Thirst Museum, hanging from the ceiling, just as a precaution to keep the public safe. The pub closed in 2012, and the building is now an Indian food restaurant. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.